the bones and in the back. Legion to cover to Malik and Mystic.
Make life worth living.
Only happy endings. That's our recipe. So welcome to the movies.
Spaghetti?
Yes, with meatballs.
I'll sleep with you for a meatball.
You and your ideas, why don't you take a Paris with you, Mouse?
I just thought you'd help you relax. What in hell was that?
B flat. It will work.
Oh, Toddy, it will
If you
not.
listen to me and do exactly as I say, in 6 weeks you'll be the toast in Paris, and we will both be very rich.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, the nightclub is proud to present one of the great entertainers of our time. The one and only Victor! Victoria!
Oh, baby, won't you play me the jazz hot? Maybe, and don't ever let it end. Don't know whether it's morning or night. Only know it's
broad,
sounding right.
with tons of shoulder.
So come on in and play me
Au revoir.
the jazz hot.
Me too.
Baby, 'cause I love my jazz hot. When you play me the jazz hot, baby, you're holding my soul together. Don't know whether it's morning or night. Only know it's sounding right.
You who?
Come on in and play me the jazz hot, baby, 'cause I love jazz hot.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the All Good Caustic Cinema. I'm your host, Christian Garcia, and welcome back to my co-host over there, Luke Delmar. And Luke, if you can't tell listeners, if you're watching us on YouTube, our backgrounds are very, very queer-oriented because today we're talking about the 1982 version of Victor Victoria, starring the incomparable Julie Andrews. Now, Luke, was this your first time watching this film, or have you seen this film before?
So, this was my first time watching this movie from start to finish.
Okay.
I've seen chunks of this movie, but I also went out of order and I watched the stage version of Victor Victoria from 1996.
Right.
With, of course, Julie Andrews reprising her role as Victor and Victoria.
Because I think it was a movie before it was a stage play, correct?
Yes, so the movie
Okay.
came out in 82, and then in 96 they adapted it for the Broadway stage. Henry Mancini did most of the music, but then he passed away while they were making it, and so Frank Wildhorn ended up finishing out the songs to round out the show because the show was
Okay.
much longer than the film.
Oh.
And I remember stumbling upon the pro shot of Victor Victoria on Netflix, of all places, and it was instant to watch many years ago. And I actually think you asked me this 2 episodes ago when we did Paris is Burning. What was my first introduction to drag? I actually now think it was the pro shot of Victor Victoria. And I remember being in high school watching it, thinking, this is so colorful, and I love Julie Andrews, and it's so gay, and something was tingling inside, being like, something feels different but good. Like I like what I'm watching, and I can't put to words what it was. And it's like I was very much in the closet back then, but I was like the little queer boy inside of me was like, this is pretty and I like it. And so and then that was my introduction to drag. But watching the 1982 original film that the music, of course, is based on, start to finish, watched it for the first time this week in preparation for this. Christian, what was your first time watching Victor Victoria?
I was thinking about that last night because I was trying to think when I did first watch it, and I honestly don't remember. I know, like, I watched it on HBO Family. I don't know why this was on HBO Family for some reason, given its very mature themes. Um, I don't know where I watched it, but I know that's the channel that I watched it on. I just remember being so taken away by Julie and Robert, their own chemistry together. And of course, Roseanne Warren is a masterclass at comedy in this
Yes.
film. And I just love the haphazards that ensue without this entire film. I was reading, thank you, Alonzo, again for this book because you have a little snippet here about it, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But as I was rewatching it last night into today, I said to myself, this kind of reminds me of another film that I can't put my finger on it until I read it here. It's Some Like It Hot, in a way.
Yes, which we reviewed a couple of weeks ago.
We did. And I'm just, you know me, I'm a big Julie Andrews fan. So you put Julie Andrews and I will just, uh say what movie you want to watch on like if I'm held hostage, either Sound of Music, Victor Victoria, or Mary Poppins, either one of those. I have a new appreciation for this film because I hadn't seen this in years. And I said, okay, well, we can discuss it. And today we're discussing it, of course. And I rewatched it again, and I was just so I was taken back to my first watch it, but then I was just so overwhelmed with all the craziness and the acceptance that this film has that I never appreciated it as a kid because, as a kid, I'm like, what the heck am I watching? But now it's like it had a whole new meaning for me because whenever we see Julie embrace her masculine side of herself, it feels like a warm hug, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. And I would also agree with you. Julie Andrews is one of those actresses that if you tell me that she's in a movie, I will watch it.
Mhm.
Other women on that list would probably be Meryl Streep, Emma Stone, and Margot Robbie, just because I love those women so much. So because I grew up also loving Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music, but then to see Julie take on this role is not that she's wasn't already a queer icon, but this just like
This
solidified,
so
it etched in stone that she is is a gay icon for this movie. And before we go any further, I'd like to give our listeners and viewers some quick little details so we can jump in earnest, in full, to our discussion of Victor Victoria. So, directed by Blake Edwards, whose other filmography include Breakfast at Tiffany's, Days of Wine and Roses, The Great Race, and the Pink Panther film franchise. This movie, of course, is based on the 1933 German film Victor und Victoria. This film stars Julie Andrews as Victoria Grant / Count Victor Krasinski. Love that Polish last name that Toddy comes up with. The incomparable Robert Preston as Carol Todd, known as Toddy to his friends. James Garner, who we last saw in The Children's Hour, which we reviewed with Anne, as King Marchand. The Queen, Miss Scarlet herself, pre-Miss Scarlet, actually, from
literally. This is, I think, 2 or a couple of years before she does Miss Scarlet.
3 years before Miss Scarlet. Leslie Ann Warren as Norma Cassidy. Alex Karras as Mr. Squash Bernstein.
I love him so much.
And John Rhys Davies as Andre Cassell, who is Sala in the Indiana Jones franchise, and Gimli, I think, in the Lord of the Rings film franchise.
And he's also in Princess Diaries too, which Julie and him make another reunion.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for reminding me that. I love that 6 degrees of separation connecting actors to different films. So, a quick synopsis. The place and time, Paris, 1934. Victoria Grant, a down-on-her-luck soprano, befriends Carol Todd, aka Toddy, an aging gay performer who comes up with the bright idea of having Victoria pass herself off as a man, Count Victor Krasinski, who is a female impersonator. Victor, wink, begins performing and becomes the toast of Paris while drawing the attention of American gangster King Marchand, who is in Paris with his girlfriend Norma Cassidy and his bodyguard Mr. Squash Bernstein. Romantical and farcical complications ensue as Victoria and King fall in love with each other. Mr. Bernstein comes out of the closet and Norma seeks revenge on King for dumping her for who she thinks is a man. Released on March the 19th, 1982, made on a budget of $15 million, this movie grossed $28.2 million at the box office. This film got 7 Oscar nominations. Best Actress for Julie, Best Supporting Actor for Robert Preston, Best Supporting Actress for Leslie Ann Warren, Best Adapted Screenplay, Art Direction, Costume Design, and its one Oscar win, of course, was for Best Original Score for Henry Mancini. And this film is also ranked among AFI's top 100 best comedies of all time, ranked number 76 on their list. Some Like It Hot is number 1, which I love. And you can currently watch this movie anywhere you get your films, whether it's Apple TV, Amazon, or YouTube Movies. So, we talked about our introduction and our first memories of this movie. But Christian, what appeals to you the most about Victor Victoria?
Oh, gosh. Is it cliche to say Julie Andrews?
No, absolutely not. I have that in my notes.
From the first time that we see her doing an audition, singing Cherry Ripe of all songs, it's just, you're just taken in by her warmth and her exuberance. And then when we see her connect with Toddy, it's more of a kinship and a more comfortable brother and sister relationship that they have. And I appreciate that so much because you rarely get that. She's like, come. She's at the restaurant and she's like, come sit at my table. What are you doing sitting there by yourself? Come over here. And it's just, to me, it's just a very, Julie is just a very welcoming presence overall. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I actually met her a couple of years ago during her second memoir book tour, which she signed it for me. And yeah, again, I didn't know if I told you, but they asked us questions like, oh, did you want to ask like a question for Julie? And her daughter was there as well. And I didn't know, but Emma was like, well, Christian has a question. And I'm like, what? That's me. Julie knows I exist.
Yes, she does.
And it was just a very prolific, eye-opening jaw-dropping moment of trying to find all the verbs to put together because I can't. She actually writes her experience of making the film. I actually haven't read it in a minute, but I know that she had very fond memories while writing this memoir, writing about the film. And I know that she adored Robert Preston. I know that she had a massive crush, who wouldn't, on James Gardner. And it's just amazing how forward-thinking a film this is at a time in the 80s when being gay was a very taboo thing to be. And I think this film really does put it on a pedestal where even though it's set in the 1930s, it was, to me, it's a very progressive and a very sincere film of acceptance. I'm going to keep saying that word a lot. I'm going to keep saying acceptance because that is what this film is. You don't put Julie Andrews in a film where she doesn't succeed. And this film, she does no other than be a sort of warm, effervescent fairy godmother in a way to all the queers of this film, especially what was his name again? Squash. We don't really see a big masculine football ruggish type of gay guy in a film that is his image is straight, but he's actually gay in real life in the film, and it's just a very welcoming movement when he when he comes out to King and he's like, "What the fuck just happened?" So, Luke, what about this film appeals to you?
Well, it's like you said, Julie Andrews, because I grew up loving The Sound of Music and Mary Poppins. Still to this day, those are two of my favorite um, movie musicals and Julie Andrews roles. And of course, loved her in The Princess Diaries because I remember watching those movies when I was a kid and a teenager. And I I love, because I said like my introduction to this piece was going in the wrong order. I watched the stage version before the movie. So to then go back and watch where the source material started for the stage musical, because of course this is an adaptation of a black and white German film from the 30s. But what I love so much about this movie is, like you said, a film that is set in the 30s, made in the 1980s, about drag, about queer people, and having this movie just be so unapologetically queer and having, because I also know from my own like personal deep dives into history and everything that France was a much more accepting place for queer people, especially in like pre World War II era of Europe. There were more accepting places, and I think that it's remarkable that the original black and white film was made, and then of course that this film was. And when you have, because the 1980s, 82 was a very it was sort of the tipping point year for when sadly the AIDS crisis was starting to get noticed. People were starting to notice cases among the gay community of AIDS before we even knew what the terminology was for it and everything, or what it was called. And so you have this unapologetic queer film that feels like a love letter to the queer community. And you have, I mean, you have Mary Poppins slash Maria and Harold Hill playing together in a movie musical that is just so colorful and fabulous and lush, and there is a little bit of grit to the streets of Paris, especially in the opening sequence when we see Victoria just so down on her luck and everything. But I love the costumes. Le Jazz Hot is probably one of the best songs in the film. That and Chicago, Illinois, which of course Norma sings as well. And also another fabulous, beautiful, fierce woman, Leslie Ann Warren, because I love the board game Clue. And so I watched the movie young and I fell in love with it. And so to then go back and watch her other films, she's incredible in this movie. And also, like I said, Robert Preston, I had seen The Music Man very young because I was in it in middle school. So I love watching the movies of musicals as I'm in rehearsals for the show. So I remember watching the Robert Preston version of The Music Man. And so to see him in this role as Toddy, there's a confidence with him that I love, because I think making it a period piece, I think you very easily could have slipped into old-fashioned stereotypes, but in spite of that, I think that Toddy is such a strong gay character, and I think that he is, and again, Victoria is just so automatically accepting of him. My favorite
Automatically.
automatically. And my favorite exchange is when they're in his apartment and they're trying to get warm after they had been in the snow. And she goes, "Can I ask you a personal question?" And he goes, "How long have I been a homosexual?" And she goes, "No,
No.
I've been a hypochondriac." And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with, like, in her mind, there's nothing taboo, there's nothing wrong or indecent about it. And I just, again, as someone now who is sitting here so much more confident in my own queerness, being able to go back and then watch films that were made before my time that were unapologetically queer and letting that rainbow flag fly and being fierce and fabulous, I appreciate that in spades tremendously, because I love looking back at these films going, wow, look at these trailblazers. Look at Julie Andrews in drag as a beautiful drag queen and then taking off her wig. Because Julie, I always remember, like, the image of Julie Andrews, I always saw her in and out of her films with that very short haircut that she always would have. And so for them to utilize that, and of course to slick her hair back, and it's the most beautiful shade of red and it's absolutely fantastic. I just love, I know that the lesbians out there probably are loving the idea of Julie Andrews in a suit. And the scene with the cigar is so funny because, of course, she doesn't know how to smoke a cigar properly, but that's, of course, the butt of that joke. But yeah, I just love how in the time period in which this film was made, it was not afraid to present this narrative and present these characters. And every queer person in this movie doesn't feel like a caricature. They don't feel like a stereotype. There's different shades of queerness that we see in this movie. Everybody from Toddy to Victor, Victoria, and then to Mr. Bernstein. You see all different shades of what it can mean to be a queer person and not have your sexuality be defining preconceived notions and stereotypes. I love that about this movie. What's that little book you have there, Chris?
Sorry, I found a big chunk of when Julie talks about Victor Victoria in
And this is
her
Homework.
second memoir. This is her second memoir,
Mhm.
called Homework. And she
Yes.
talks about her Hollywood years, and she ends on Victor Victoria,
Okay.
talking about the film and making it. I just figured out that the first musical number that they filmed was The Shady Dame from Seville.
Oh, that was the first thing that they shot.
Mhm.
Okay.
It was also, I quote, it was also my first opportunity to pull the wig off and reveal Victor beneath. I tried to remain expressionless as I did so. It was always difficult to know whether to focus on being masculine, even when in a dress, or to show hints of the woman beneath the male facade, depending on the scene. I struggled to remember which one was leading at any given moment. It felt like patting my head and rubbing my stomach at the same time.
Yes, there's an amazing Vanity Fair video where she does a retrospective of her career, and when she
Yeah.
talks about Victor Victoria,
Yeah.
she says that exact same sentiment about how she was always confused of how to play the character. She was like,
Mhm.
was I actually a guy pretending to be a woman, or was I a woman pretending to be a man, pretending to be a woman? And but again, she looks back on this movie so fondly with the fact that this was one of her, I think this was one of her sixth or seventh collaborations with her husband, Blake Edwards, who directed her in a lot of films.
Yeah.
And he
Directed her
obviously,
in SOB.
yes, which I have not seen before, but I've heard is a very good movie.
Yes.
And um, of course, there's Breakfast at Tiffany's. Days of Wine and Roses is a very, like, that's a dark drama. The Great Race is a huge screwball
Mhm.
slapstick comedy with Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon and Natalie Wood. And then for him to direct a musical this way, and I think that also the musical numbers in this film are so great as well. I think that they also add to the queerness, because I think that because all of the musical numbers are diegetic in that they're set in the world of a
Yep.
performance venue, they're allowed to be the most theatrical that they can be.
Mhm.
And I love I love seeing the rehearsal process for Le Jazz Hot, like Victoria in her like suit and everything with the choreographer, like learning the moves, and then finally seeing her perform in that beautiful outfit, which of course is your background, the one with the fringe, the one with this amazing headpiece. Um, and it's not even it's like fringe as a wig. It's like beads as
Funny enough, if you've seen the Megan Hilty did a little before Death Becomes Her was sadly taken off the stage.
Mhm.
Um she did her performance of For the Gays, and I believe this headpiece that Julie wears, Megan also wears. I think that's kind of like a nod to Victor Victoria.
Yeah, and I love how there's a nod to that with the headpiece and the
And then
fringe.
not to meet me in St. Louis with the trolley.
Yes, and I love how the fringe in Megan's
Yep.
Madeline dress is the progressive pride flag, and then when they
Mhm.
rip the whole thing off, she's
And
Dorothy
it's
underneath.
Dorothy.
It's like that couldn't
Can
like
you get any more meta than
Paul
Megan who
Taswell
plays
was
Glinda
fully
on
deserving in
Broadway
this
to
Tony Curtis
then put
costume.
on a Donna Dorothy costume with fake Toto and all?
Yeah, yes, yes, yes. So
Oh my
again,
gosh. Actually, speaking of the Jazz Hot, sorry.
mhm,
That's actually one of my favorite musical sequences ever put on film, ever captured on film.
yes.
Because you this is our very first introduction to this caricature
Hmm.
of Victor as
Yes.
as Victor.
Hmm.
So for me, this was actually, I think this was my first introduction to drag, and this was my first introduction to the movie, I think. I didn't see the beginning as a kid. I always remembered seeing this scene, and I was just so enraptured by it. I was just like, what is this? I need more of this. Where can I find it? And then that's when middle school me came along and I did a whole deep dive on Julie. And I don't know, this whole sequence to me just reeks of pride and reeks of just being yourself and understanding how big a movement that blues music had on the music industry. And I think this song really does it justice.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. I also, what I can really love and appreciate about it is, in addition to creating this wonderful drag persona
Mhm.
um, of Victor slash Victoria, you get this amazing moment where um, it's obviously playing up her strengths that she has, because the whole uh the gimmick, in quotations if you will, that Toddy is thinks would be the perfect way to showcase off, like, oh, how is this man Victor such a great female person?
Mhm.
He can hit this high crazy soprano note, which of course Julie could naturally do. And I love at the end of Le Jazz Hot how she starts at the lowest note for a
And
male
then goes higher.
and then slides up the scale to the
Mhm.
highest note. And I love that. It plays to her strengths so well. And she just looks so joyful on screen when she's in Le Jazz Hot. I know that we see more of uh the Shady Dame from Seville, because that number is played a couple times in the movie, but I personally
Mhm.
think that Le Jazz Hot is the best number that they do at the club when she's
Yep.
performing as Victor. I just think
Mhm.
that I love the melody and the beat. I love the backup dancers that add to it, because of course it's like, yes, there's nothing more fabulous than having these chorus boys picking her up and dancing with her, and then these chorus girls dancing in a huge straight kick line with Julie. And it's, again, it's just rapturous and joyous. And so you have the in-universe audience that is enjoying the piece. And then the moment that she takes the wig off, and I
Mhm.
love how Mr. Bernstein goes, "It's a guy," and then Norma goes, "Yeah!" And she starts freaking out more, and then the audience rises to their feet, because one of the things that I had it later in my fun facts, but I'll just say it now. Julie was slightly apprehensive when her husband presented her with this idea of wanting
Yep. She also says it in her memoir as well because
of
she wasn't
turning
sure
this,
how she would pull it off.
because she thought there's no way that an audience is going to believe that I'm a man.
Wait a
And
second. No, he says it right here. Where is it? Oh my gosh.
And Blake Edwards told her, he said, "I've baked it into the script where the audience in the film fully believes that you are
Mhm.
a man." And so that gave her then the freedom to be able to explore this character. And um, because obviously Julie, it's she has very delicate feminine features, but when she is in male presenting clothing, and she has her hair slicked back, and she lowers just ever so slightly the pitch of her voice to create the persona of Victor. Um, and I also love I mean, we could talk for 45 minutes about the costumes. I think that the costumes of this movie are just so fantastic in the
They
way that
are.
she, in men's tailored suits, just looks so good on her. She looks fantastic when she is a man, and it's wonderful. And I love I love Norma's costumes. I love her wig. Norma's curly blonde, like Jean Harlow, Marilyn Monroe hair almost. Like, it's that look is so good on her. And I just love the physical comedy of Leslie Ann Warren's Norma. The way that when she's put on the train, and then she literally opens up her coat and she's wearing nothing but her
I falls
undergarment.
onto the train platform. She's like, "You okay, honey?"
Yes. The moment that kills me every time I watch it, whether it's in this movie or it's in the stage version, when Victor brings her into the bedroom and shuts the door and she goes, "Wait!" Lock the door. And I'm like, "Oh!" I love it so, so much. And I think that it's, I love the addition, and I think that it's so smartly written narrative-wise when King, Norma, and Mr. Bernstein enter into the story, because then we have a bit of a love triangle, we have some romantic complications, but we also add comedy, a little bit, like more comedy than we already had to start with.
One of my favorite comedy moments is when they first go to John Rhys Davis's office in when Toddy wants to introduce Victoria.
Yeah.
And there's this guy who comes in and the secretary is like, no. She's like, well, during the only great exhibitioner that Mr. I forget his name sees
Cassell.
is what was the fucking name? It was the something the barber, and then he proceeds to do this acrobatic act in front of her.
Yeah,
And it keeps getting crazier and crazier. He jumps on top of her head, does a handstand in the air, and as Julie does this high-pitched C note, the glass shatters and he falls on his ass. And I'm like, that is peak comedy right there. If
yes.
you want to know how to make a comedy film, go to Blake Edwards.
Oh my gosh.
The comedy of this film reminds me so much of the comedy in Breakfast at Tiffany's. It's silent, it's there, and it's just taking over the whole screen. The whole cockroach incident in the restaurant, that reminded me so much of the party in Holly Golightly's, that big crazy ass party when everyone's going crazy. There's a woman crying in front of a mirror, then laughing. It's like you have all these different elements, but they all piece together, and it's like the waiter's like, well, if you're not going to pay for the salad, I assume that you don't have a cockroach in your salad. And then all of a sudden, this big woman just has to jump up and say, oh,
And then after that other patron in the restaurant screams because the cockroach is on her
everything
leg,
goes haywire.
the camera cuts out to
To
outside
the,
the
to the
restaurant.
outside of the restaurant,
So
we don't hear anything. It's silent. You could hear a pin drop.
But yet you as the audience can already figure out the
Yep,
chaos and
everything
calamity that is happening in that.
like you don't have to hear it. You could hear it in your mind. That's the beauty of this film and Blake Edwards' direction. It's like
Yes.
she's telling the audience, like, you don't have to hear the craziness that's ensuing. You just have to see it, and you'll know what the heck's happening.
Yes. I also it's another one of my favorite comic exchanges between Norma and Toddy when they meet for the first time in Victor's
Oh my God.
dressing room. And when Norma finds out that Toddy is gay,
Oh no.
I also, for the record, I do love how every time that someone says the word queer, using it back then in the 30s as a derogatory term, people correct them and say, no, we prefer gay. And then Norma goes, but you're so attractive. It seems like such a waste. And he goes, trust me, it isn't wasted. And then she goes, I bet the right woman could reform you. And he goes, who knows? Maybe the right woman could reform you. And she goes, me give up men? Never. Remarkable. You took the words right out of my mouth. And I'm like, that's it. That's the best exchange in the whole movie. I think it's amazingly funny. It's just, and the way that Robert and Leslie play that. Their timing is wonderful. It's so perfect and funny. And it's, again, I know, like I said, from my history, that pre-World War II, Europe was a much more accepting place. There were a lot of queer spaces in Europe, more so out in the open, like cabaret style performance. Yep. Even if people couldn't be legally married, there was an acceptance of the art form of female impersonation in adding to the performance space of it all. And I think that's, which was much more progressive than what
even if you look at Marlene Dietrich in
yes.
What was that movie? I know it's here. I just
Morocco.
I just passed the page.
Mm-hmm.
It's remarkable how, I mean, I don't know if you listeners, you can't see this, but Marlene Dietrich is, I need to see this film. I've never seen it, and I do know that it is on our list to discuss, listeners and viewers. Marlene Dietrich, I think, in this film, I can't wait to watch it because I feel like it's going to be a masterpiece in itself. But looking at her now and then looking at Julie, it's like Marlene paved the way for Julie to do this. And I think it only goes to show how far cinema has come from Morocco coming out in 1930.
Yes.
1930. 2 years when this film with Victor Victoria is set in 1932. It just goes to show you how accepting cinema is in an art form of itself. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I asked you and I created this frickin' podcast to begin with, because cinema itself lends the camera to its own way and pavement of its own yellow brick road of acceptance. And this film, when we're talking about it now in 2026, is groundbreaking. Sorry, I have a lot more to say, but I want to keep going. I'll save that for later because I don't want to. I just wanted to give a little thing for the social media clips.
I mean, this is our podcast. This is your podcast. You can say as much as you want, but I totally get what you're saying. Because I said this when we reviewed The Celluloid Closet about how queer people have been a part of the making of Hollywood since its inception. You wouldn't have film if you didn't have queer people as a part of the rich history, both in front of and behind the camera.
Hey there, I'm Tara.
And I'm MK.
And we are your resident Good Witch hosts of Down the Yellow Brick Pod,
preserving and peeling behind the curtain on the wonderful world of Oz.
Come for the Oz fandom,
but stay for the company that's got you on your loneliest of yellow brick roads.
Through our juicy conversations, rabbit holes, and many Oz metaphors as medicine on the pod, we have tried to make sense of the wild times we live in and have traveled back to the turn of the 20th century,
to the heyday of MGM Studios,
to a super soul 1970s smash on Broadway,
the dark fantasy film era of the 80s,
90s ice skating and musical touring shows,
a 2010s reality TV search for Dorothy,
and much more, traveling through the decades as we cover all things iconic and obscure Oz.
For us, Oz has become a portal to continuously revel in history and human connection, holding space for this magical land we all have ingrained in us and the multi-layered rainbows we each are.
You can find Down the Yellow Brick Pod wherever you listen to podcasts, on Patreon for exclusive content, on Etsy for show swag, and on IG for an accompanying scrapbook to our episodes, community, and our guests.
Can't wait to hang over the rainbow. See you in Oz.
Have you ever thought, how does everyone know about this current book? And why are they running to the bookstores and libraries to get their hands on it? Or everyone's talking about this TV show, but I feel like I'm binging it months after all of my friends and family. Well, then I have the podcast for you. Hi, I'm Dr. Andrew Rimby, the host and director of the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, an arts and culture podcast. We discuss here LGBTQ plus society and culture, literature, TV, film, true crime, academic conversations, and pop culture. You can listen to us wherever you get podcasts, specifically Spotify and Apple. Make sure that you follow us on Spotify or Apple, rate and review us, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Ivory Tower Boiler Room. We hope you enjoy the podcast.
We here at That Olga Cossack Cinema are excited to announce that we have recently partnered with the Gay and Lesbian Review, known as the GNLR, a bi-monthly magazine of history, culture, and politics targeting an educated readership of LGBT people and their allies that publishes essays in a wide range of disciplines as well as reviews of books, movies, and plays. Each issue has a theme, and its current issue, Victorian Times, explores some of the 19th century writers who first put legibly queer characters and actions on the page. For more info, check out their website at glreview.org. That's glreview.org. And when you subscribe, enter promo code at TOGC Choice. That is TOGC Choice for the March-April 2026 issue to receive it as a bonus copy. All right, guys, enjoy your reading, and welcome back to the show.
And I love how this movie is about the art form of drag in the performance spaces that were created so that queer people could be themselves.
Yep.
Whether they were performers or whether they were patrons, the fact that you have gay clubs and gay bars that were very prominent in Europe, like I said, pre-World War II, and Paris and France, especially as a country, was very accepting. We just talked about Marie Antoinette and how fabulously the Rococo period was, but then you have the 20s through the 30s, where you have everything from the flapper to jazz to burlesque and cabaret, and all of these elements combined together. You also have the rainbow sparkles that are sprinkled on top of that art form that just made it so that queer people could thrive and that they could perform whatever they wanted to in a place that was accepting of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how, and I think, and I absolutely believe this wholeheartedly. I think I can't picture anybody else playing the role of Victoria other than Julie, because I think she brings a warmth to the role of Victoria. And not that this necessarily, I don't want this to come off as patronizing, but I think in a way, having like the world's most famous nanny and governess playing this drag queen then gets audience members that might not have been familiar with what this story is or what this movie was based on to then come and see it. It's like, oh, Julie Andrews is in a new movie musical, or, oh, I've never seen this movie. I love Mary Poppins. I love The Sound of Music. Let me check out this film. And then it brings in a new audience to then expand their horizons. And I think that when you have not just Julie, but this amazing cast all together, because that's one of, I think that a lot of us cinephiles will discover films that we had either never seen or heard of before through our favorite actors and actresses. And like looking through their filmography and being like, you know what, I love this performer, but I've never seen this movie. Let me watch it for the first time. And like whenever I watch movies with Nick, I love pointing out like who's in the movie that he knows, because he's a huge Lord of the Rings fan.
Did he watch this film with you?
He did watch Victor
Did he
Victoria
love
with me.
it? Did he like it?
He really enjoyed it because
He's a Lord of the Rings nerd?
he is a Lord of the Rings nerd. So to see John Rhys Davies
Should we
as
talk about it on the
Andre
podcast?
Excel, yes, I think those would be some fun movies to talk about. But to see John Rhys Davies as Andre Cassell,
Yeah.
and I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan, so of course I recognize
He
him.
is so young in this film. It was kind of hard to like recognize him, but then it's like, oh, I know who he is. His smile, his, I was like, oh, okay, but he's so young in this film.
Yes. And then also, like I was saying, my only other knowledge of Robert Preston was The Music Man.
Oh, yes.
Version with Shirley Jones.
Mhm.
And of course, he has the same vocal cadence that he talks in as Harold Hill. But again, I think, and yes, you do have in this case a straight actor portraying a gay character. But again, I think because of the way that the script is written, Edward's direction and Preston's performance, it doesn't feel like a sissy caricature. It feels like a real human
It
being.
feels real.
It
feels
yes.
accurate.
It does feel accurate. It feels like a warm portrayal with lots of comedy, but it's
You
not.
didn't know it, but when I was watching it, I thought Robert Preston was gay. I'm like, oh.
Right. But the comedy in this film is never laughing at the gay characters. It's
Never.
slapstick, it's quick-witted jokes, but you're never laughing at the queer people in this film. And I think that is so important when you are telling a story that is about queerness. And I also will say, I haven't watched it all the way through. I did find it for free on YouTube, the full upload of Victor und Victoria from 1933, the black and white German version. But reading the synopsis and also knowing what Julie had said about it, that movie is about a woman whose agent simply convinces her to be pretend to be a man and a female impersonator, but none of the characters in that movie are gay. So there is no Toddy, there are no, and that's why I think that the wonderful handling of the story in the addition of setting it in a world with queer characters is so important. And I think that that's one of the reasons why this is such an important touchstone in the history of queer cinema, because you have, like I was saying, a movie that came out, unfortunately, right around the time that the AIDS crisis was starting to be noticed, but you have this love letter and this Valentine to the gay community, to drag, and creating this wonderful new character of Victoria Grant and Victor Grzinski, who is this incredible drag persona that people still harken back to. I mean, this sits on the same shelf with Mary Poppins and Maria von Trapp and the Queen.
Thoroughly Modern Millie.
And Thoroughly Modern Millie, yes. Julie I found this out, but Julie's 3 Oscar nominations that she's had in her whole career were all for movie musicals. Her first nomination.
Wow. Well, she won for Mary Poppins.
Her first nomination was her first win for Mary Poppins. The next year was The Sound of Music, and then this was her most recent, as of the recording of this video, her most recent Oscar nomination. And
I've always wondered, and you're a movie nerd, Luke. I've always wondered, I think I asked Nate this when we recorded Mary Poppins. I've always wondered if Mary Poppins was the only Disney film that was ever put on the pedestal to win an Oscar at the Academy Awards.
Well, it's interesting because Mary Poppins was it came out, of course, the same year as My Fair Lady did. And people
they were at odds against it. They didn't know where to turn.
Yeah, it was, and also I think that because Mary Poppins was the pinnacle, like it was the culmination of all of what Walt had wanted to do in terms of combining animation with live action filmmaking and movie musical storytelling. And so, and yes, and I think that Julie has had the sentiment as well that she felt that her win for Mary Poppins was almost like a consolation prize for not getting to do Eliza Doolittle,
which she did want to do, but
she did. But if she had, we never would have gotten Mary
Yep.
Poppins. Yeah, and I'm glad that we live in a universe with Mary Poppins instead of an alternate universe where Julie, because she probably could have won, but I'm glad that we have Mary Poppins instead. But
I feel like Mary Poppins is one of those films that I always put on whenever I have a bad day, or if um I'm like I need something to put on the background, something that I know by heart. That film, along with Victoria, because I grew up with this film, they have that same effect. Whereas if it's a Julie Andrews film, for me, it's a comfort movie.
Absolutely.
And
I'll
yeah,
just a teeny bit personal, but it was a year ago. It was last June when I got laid off from my full-time job that I had had for a year. And the first thing I did when I got home was I put on The Wizard of Oz because I wanted a comfort movie. And I was updating my resume and sending out new applications and filling out unemployment paperwork while I had The Wizard of Oz in the background. Because there is something so comforting about not only the movies we grew up with, but the movies themselves being these wonderful like escapes. Exactly. And I think that what I also really appreciate about this film is
this film is also an escape.
This
because
film
it
is also
transports you back in time. And I also read in this little snippet here that where is it? Here it is.
Listeners, we're also going to include a links where you can find Homework, Julie's second biography, because this is an amazing book that Kristen has, and we will include it in the show notes if you want to get your hands on a copy of Julie's memoir.
Yes. She says that Robert Moss, our production designer, had worked wonders with our two-stage set. The Paris streets were so realistic that it was easy to forget we were actually indoors. There were real drains for snow and rain runoff, and the buildings and storefronts had myriad authentic details like letter boxes, window glasses, lamps, and street signs. One side of the street were more upmarket and the other more rundown. Cars would literally drive along the roads. Most of the interior sets had been built in their designated spaces behind the building facades. The hotel lobby, the restaurants, the piattazzeri, the CD bar, the nightclub and the hotel rooms were separate sets and they glowed with the Art Deco flair. The lamps were genuine antiques from the period, as were so many of the wall hangings and other decorative items.
I
just love the production design. The production designer, Roger Mars, really went above and beyond to make this film a real authentic piece of cinema and to make it feel real. And I love how Julie Andrews, even when writing this book back in 2019, remembered all this stuff.
I love, and again, I'm sure that it's so
I think
easy
this back photo is her rehearsing for Victoria, if I'm not mistaken.
I love it.
Listeners, viewers, yeah, sorry.
I just love because I'm sure you know this, but every single time that I hear other people talk about Julie Andrews, like in interviews, like someone like Anne Hathaway, always talking about
I can't wait for Princess Diaries 3. Sorry. Spoiler, tangents.
Yeah. But people always say how Julie is one of the nicest people in show business and how she is so down to earth. And the fact that she took the time to remember the set designer and art decorator for this movie, who rightfully nominated for the Oscar. Yes. It was Henry Mancini that won. And I was actually wondering to myself, I was like, okay, 7 nominations, Julie was nominated, and I was like, who was her competition? Who was the one who beat
I wonder, who was it back in 82?
It was Meryl Streep and Sophie's Choice. It's like, you couldn't, it's like damn it! It's like
No, you little.
if it had been a different year, maybe Julie could have won. But it's like,
Have you seen that movie?
yes, I have seen Sophie's Choice, and
Oh my God.
I had always, again, been
Can
aware
we
of
talk
that.
about that film? No, maybe it's too depressing.
Well,
But
I mean, if we want to, listeners, if you're interested, we could absolutely do a review of that.
this
film.
is us as like, even though we're talking about another movie,
No,
it's like we're already like you're like, do we talk about it next? Do we talk about this one? But anyway, keep going.
well, no, I was just because again, I love I love looking through, like I said, actresses' filmographies and finding gems or finding new things to love from their work. And I won't lie, I do think that because of the just how big and iconic the Sound of Music and Mary Poppins are, I think they might slightly overshadow Victor Victoria. But listeners, do not sleep on this if you haven't watched it. If you're a fan of Julie, you need to watch this because this is such an I think it's an important film in her filmography. I think that again, knowing what an ally Julie herself is to the queer community, making this movie in the 80s when she did, that her husband wanted to write it with more queer representation makes it so wonderful. And it's I think
that's what makes it so much more powerful. And
it does. And I think it also like it shows a growth in Blake Edwards because famously or infamously, when they made Blake Edwards directed Breakfast at Tiffany's, and when they made that film unfortunately was made under the guise of the Hays office, and the Hays Code was still like lingering. It wasn't as tight of a grip, but it still sort of like lingered in the early 60s. And
because Breakfast came out in 62. Okay.
The same year that the Children's Hour did. It was the exact same year. So
it's funny how Audrey did both of those films at the same time. Both of them, though, totally different.
Completely, totally different. But what I think is so fascinating is that you had Blake Edwards, who directed Breakfast at Tiffany's, where unfortunately he was the biggest, loudest voice in wanting to make Mr. Yunioshi such a prominent comedic character, which unfortunately makes Breakfast at Tiffany's for me.
I'm glad there isn't any of that in this film. Thank God.
But stick with me on this.
Yeah.
So you have him 20 years before making Breakfast at Tiffany's, where he watered down the homosexuality tones from Truman Capote's original book, and then plays up this racist stereotype. Fast forward 20 years later, he makes this movie and wants to include more queer characters and creates an atmosphere and a narrative that is more prominent and makes, like you said, an accepting atmosphere. They're not, we're not laughing at these queer characters. We are embracing them in universe and as an audience. What were you going to say?
And I love how you were talking about how he made Yunioshi as like this comedic foil thing, like for laughs and giggles. Whereas in Victor Victoria, he does the complete opposite. He doesn't use queer people as a sort of pedestal for laughter. The only thing of laughter that is in this film are the fight scenes that incur throughout this entire film.
The cockroach scene in the cafe.
The cafe, all the bars. The most popular one, I think, was when they meet his Toddie's ex-lover again with his family in the bar, and it's like, whoa. Todd rips off his mother's wig. It's like, oh.
I love that. I actually, it's the first time with it we meet. So Richard is Toddie's ex-lover who actually in the opening shot, we see him wake up in bed next to Toddy, and then when they go to Toddy's to the gay club that Toddy works at, he is obviously like.
Well, wait. You missed the part when when Toddy first gets the idea of Victoria becoming Victor when Victoria beats Richard up.
Yes, but it's the scene before that where he sees Richard with all of his family he's brought, and he tries to put his guests on the spot, and then he goes to the gentleman. He goes, you should be ashamed of yourself, bringing your sweet old mother to a place like this. And then that's when it turns into a fight. And then when Richard shows up the next morning looking for his clothes and Julie is hiding in the closet, she's then put on his clothes and just whacks him in the face. And it's so funny the way that it's like he already has like a bruise here, and then he comes back down to the taxi with like him holding his nose, like some guy broke my nose, and then he's got more blood coming down and everything. And it's the physical comedy, and also in the second fight that happens in that same one, when Julie punches James Garner in the face.
By accident, she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry."
Because she didn't realize that was him. But yeah, when she grabs that one woman by the hair who's hitting another person, and then she accidentally rips her hair off to reveal her stark white hair, almost reminded me of the fight scene in the bathroom in Valley of the Dolls when Patty Duke rips off Helen Luxon's wig to reveal her white hair. It's like and we will talk about that movie at some point in the future. But yeah, the comedy in this film it's earned, it's organic, and it's also, I think, when you have, I think that because comedy, I've one of my favorite video essayists, Lindsay Ellis, has said this, that comedy is unfortunately one of the few genres that can age the quickest because of the changing times and whatever. But I think that certain types of comedy, like screwball slapstick, is something that is ageless. I remember showing my friends recently Bringing Up Baby, and they had never seen it. And every time that there is a pratfall, every time the scene when Catherine and Carrie fall into the lake and they think that it's shallow water and they completely fall underwater, it's funny. And then in this movie, you have not only slapstick comedy, but sharp, witty dialogue that's also funny as well. And I'm so thankful, like I said before, that they did not use the queer characters as comic targets or punching bags. They are real people that are genuine, and it feels authentic and lovely. And I also think it creates a wonderful conversation, because I want to talk about my favorite scene in the whole movie, which is it's a dinner scene with King Marchand, Victor, Toddy, and Mr. Bernstein is sitting off at a different and the King, throughout the whole movie, of course, is convinced that Victor is not really a woman.
Yeah.
And Victoria as Victor, is probing him for questions, because she's like, why? Because you think that homosexuality is unnatural and a sin. And this is my favorite exchange, when Victoria as Victor says to King, she goes, I think it's as simple as you're one kind of man, I'm another. And King goes, and what kind of man are you? And Victor says, one that doesn't have to prove it to myself or anyone. And that, as a queer man, hits so hard. And it's like,
that's why I said when I rewatched it again many years later, after I haven't seen it in a while, that scene hit me the hardest. I agree with you. It's just, Julie knew what she was doing when she signed up. But again, I understand. She was very hesitant. She wasn't sure if she could pull it off. But thankfully, her husband talked her into it. Everyone from the set made her feel welcome. It wasn't as if they didn't know that this was, it's not a joke. We're making this. So people who don't feel included in films are. in this film. And I think that's what makes this film even the more poignant. Because, yeah, that whole dinner scene actually for me just rings a lot deeper than it did when I first watched it growing up. And I'm just grateful that it exists, and it's a part of cinema that will never be erased.
Exactly. And the fact that it is that line in universe is being spoken by a woman who Victoria as a character develops a strength and an autonomy of herself that she never had living her life as a woman, that she then is able to have when she is a man. And that just goes to show you like that dismantles, like shows the ridiculous absurdity of the patriarchy and sexism and everything. But the fact that she's able to say that line and then it resonates through the screen and then goes to the audience and hits us, especially as queer men, who, like you said brilliantly earlier, this film shows sort of like the perfect spectrum of what it can represent as queer people. You can have somebody who is confident and strong in their femininity as a man, like Toddy. You have the character of Victoria and Victor, and then you have Mr. Bernstein, who, before he was an actor, Alex Karras was a football player. So they actually wrote it into his character. But it's not a ding against his masculinity or him being a man. And it's like that singular line sums up the whole thesis of not only the movie, but what I think is, at least as a queer man, I think one of the hardest things that we have to learn is that we are a different kind of man, and we don't have to prove ourselves to the heterosexual community that we're still men, even if we are either in touch with our feminine side or we find other men attractive. We are, and it's wonderful the way that it's shot, the way that it's written, the way that she acted it, and the way that that line actually resonates with King, and he gets it. It's so important, and I think that that is probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. I mean, the musical numbers are great, but my favorite dialogue scene is definitely that one, because it is so poignant and it is so beautiful.
Oh, Luke, we still have one more topic to discuss, and it's one of your favorite topics of all time.
Well, yeah. Before we get into our fun facts, we have been talking about this, but let's answer our question. How does Victor Victoria hold up? This movie is well over 40, almost 50 years old, but how does this film hold up after all these years, Christian?
Oh gosh, I know I've said it before. I know I said it in the beginning, but rewatching it now in a modern lens, it to me it resonated, like I said before, it resonated a lot more to me now as an adult than it did growing up, because now I understand what it's like to have to hide yourself and not feel as if you're not able to be your true self, which is what Victoria is dealing with. And Toddy himself is dealing with it in his own way as well. But what I think rings true for this film, I think, is, I'll say it one more time, the acceptance of this film, I think, is even more poignant rewatching it again in 2026, because you don't get many films like this. You don't get many films that has a lead actress who is an LGBTQ activist herself and an ally in her own right. And to have her portray this character, to me, just shows me how dedicated she was to make sure that she got it right, and she didn't want it to come off as a joke. She wanted this role to be not only one of her defining roles, but she wanted to, I believe she would have wanted to make it so the queer man who might not be so out there would be seen in this film.
Hmm. I love that. I love that. I I fully agree with you. I also think that there is something to be said about how this movie's queer representation can be fun and whimsical at the same time that it can be genuine and authentic. Because I think that films made earlier in the history of Hollywood, as we have talked about, leaned more into making it a caricature or something that the audience could laugh at. And this movie has so much heart. It has so much care and love that was put forward towards it. And I think that there are obviously movies when actors and actresses make them, and there are queer aspects to the film that get embraced that are unintentional, that become taken in by the queer community, and we love these films, even if the original intention was not to make it queer. But it's different, and it's extra special when you make a movie for the queer community, and we do love it, and we do embrace it, and you can tell that even in the 1980s, how this movie was made with so much care and love and just an accepting, warm atmosphere. And then you have probably one of the most lovable, sweet actresses playing this fierce, amazing drag queen, and surrounded by wonderful characters and beautiful costumes, an amazing score, detailed sets, like you said. The recreation of Paris in the 30s is incredible. I love the use of color in this movie so much. I think that it's I love the pink aspect of the nightclub and everything, and I love every time that we see Victoria performing that it's in a different, huge, elaborate set piece with all of these amazing dancers and a message at the center of it that is love and the way that you walk through life in your own gender does not have to be so rigid and strict. Because one of the things, we didn't talk about this, but I will just mention it now, is the fact that King says that line when he says, "I don't care if you are a man," and then kisses Victoria. It's like the fluidity of sexuality and gender. It doesn't have to exist in these rigid binary structures. We can have fun with it, and you can explore, and you can find your strength in however you want to present yourself. And there is a strength in being queer that I think that this movie exalts tremendously, especially for me, for the characters of Victoria, Toddy, and Mr. Bernstein. Those are the three characters that I think show the different wide range of strength in their queer experience, which I love so much.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we get into some fun facts and scenes trivia? So, as I mentioned earlier, Blake Edwards was the director of the Pink Panther film franchise. And when he originally came up with the idea of creating an American musical version of Victor Victoria, he wanted his wife, Julie, of course, to play the lead, and he wanted Peter Sellers, who was Inspector Clouseau from the Pink Panther franchise, to play Toddy.
Oh.
He originally did that, but sadly, Peter Sellers passed away before they were before they could even start the movie, and so then because of his filmography in movie musicals like The Music Man and Mame, they approached Robert Preston to play the role of Toddy, and then of course the rest was history, and he was just so absolutely perfect. I found out that when Norma says lock the door in that scene with her and Victor in the hotel room, that was improvised by Leslie Ann Warren. She came up with that on her own, and I love it whenever improvised lines make it into the final cut of a movie. I think it is so much fun. And then this made me laugh. There's that scene where Victor is rehearsing for La Jazz Hot, and there's a group of backup dancers. At what? Were you going to say this one?
No.
There's Toddy comes up behind these boys that are in the chorus and everything, and one of them said, "Ugh, he's a phony," and someone said, "Well, whoever, even if he's a phony, I think he's divine." That was Blake Edwards' son, Jeffrey Edwards, who was Julie Andrews' stepson that made it into the film as an extra. And I love that line was said by Blake Edwards' son that he got to put in the movie, even if it was for one little moment. I'm like, oh, that's really cute. I love that. I've got a couple more, but I want to pass the mic over to you if you have any.
I don't.
Okay, then
sorry.
I'll keep. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay. I just want to make sure that I don't hog this entire section. I know it's one of my favorite parts, but I want to make sure that you get your moment as well. I love the Shady Dame from Seville. The dress that Julie wore is the same dress that Robert Preston wears. It was the same costume, but they had to pin it tighter on Julie because she obviously had a smaller frame. Yeah. But it was designed for Robert to wear for the final scene. So they didn't make two dresses. They made one costume, but then they pinned it tighter on Julie and then let Robert wear it in his natural frame, which when he's doing that final moment and he's falling over, he's falling on the dress, he's falling on the actors. It's like, that's also one of the hilarious slapstick funny moments that I absolutely love from this movie. And then I know we don't usually talk about reviews like when the movie gets them, but I wanted to, this one review from the New York Times when the film came out. I just love the way that Vincent Cranby was very enthusiastic and gave the movie a glowing review. And I love, this was his actual review. He said, "The film is so good, so exhilarating, that the only depressing thing about it is the suspicion that Mr. Edwards is going to have a terrible time trying to top himself." Because he's like, this is the perfect movie. I don't think you could make another great, or you couldn't do something better than this. And I'm like, I love that a critic would say something like that in a review. It's like, you've done such a good job that it would be almost impossible to do better than this film. And I love that. Because sometimes the New York Times can give like backhanded reviews or bad ones, but I love it when there's a rave review and even that little like wink and being like, let's see you try to do something better than this. But I also didn't know that Blake Edwards had directed The Great Race. And I remember loving, again, lots of slapstick humor in that film, but that's a hilarious, ridiculous screwball, like romp around the world movie. I would love to talk about that film sometime. Listeners, if you want, I will definitely do that.
Let's put it on the list.
That is a fun movie.
I've never seen it, so
it is hilarious to say the very least. And then of course 13 years after this movie Victor Victoria premiered, they adapted it for the Broadway stage. Like I said earlier, Julie of course reprised her role as the amazing Victoria Grant. Her husband directed it. Blake Edwards. It was his first time directing a Broadway musical, and it was professionally recorded and filmed and released on DVD, which I believe all Broadway shows should do that so that theater can
Yes.
live on and
Every
reach
single
the masses.
Broadway show needs to
Yes.
have a pro shot.
And
come out on DVD and digital.
Yes, I will. Yes, it's just making theater accessible is so important. And Julie, I love that when you watch the pro shot, you can just tell the audience is right there with her, like knowing full well that like this was a part that she had done before but was coming back to, and she was in her early 60s when she did it on Broadway, and it's like, you better work, mother. It's like she's incredible when she does it on stage, and she's just as. And I love that they punched up the script to be a little bit more funnier. I like they gave more songs to certain characters. And on a sidebar, if there was anybody that was going to take on the mantle of Leslie Ann Warren, Rachel York kills it as Norma in the pro shot. She is so funny. She is hilarious. She takes everything wonderful about Norma and then dials it up to a 15 and makes it even
Wow.
funny. So yeah, if you get the
I'm going to
chance,
see where I can get my hands on that pro shot.
someone uploaded it to YouTube. Some gracious
soul
put the whole thing on YouTube. So listeners, we will include in the show notes the original black
as well
and
as the
white.
link to Julie's memoir, which
Yes.
she reads herself, which I actually have both audiobooks for this one and her first memoir. So
Yeah, so we will definitely include the link to Homework.
And also, one more time, we want to thank Alonso
for Hollywood Pride.
here all day for creating a magnificent book. As you can see, Marlene is on the cover of the book, and I just can't thank Alonso enough for his contribution to Pride itself and to the queer community for creating a book like this. So thank you, Alonso. We can't shut up about you. So
No, we will never be able to shut
we'll
up.
continue to sing your praises.
Because I remember finding this book in Barnes and Noble and taking a picture of it, being like, I'm going to add this to my book list. And then the fact that we were able to connect with Alonso in the way that we did, and he was like, "Do you guys have my book?" And we're like, "No, we don't."
We will.
And he's like, give me your addresses and I'll send you a copy. And I'm like,
okay.
We'll never, because this book has also given us so much context into the movies that we've talked about.
It's given us more of a library to scour.
Yes.
So this book gives us our own homework to do in regards to understanding where queer came from in cinema and how it continues to persist and live on from the silent films onto the modern age, which is what this podcast is all about.
Exactly. And one of the things I will also, once again, shout out to Alonso for the way that he structured this book, is that he'll talk about movies that have a queer impact, but then he'll also go into the stars, the actors and the actresses.
He'll give a little bio.
Exalt them up and talk about the icons from each of these eras. And Christian and I have talked about this, listeners, but we're gonna introduce it soon. But we want to make sort of like a special edition. So like in between some episodes, we want to do a series where we're going to talk about the icons that we love. And we're going to sort of have a love fest where we talk about our favorite roles from them, fun facts about
movies, fun facts, anything
where we talk about people like Julie, people like Judy, people like Catherine, people like Joe,
Liza, people like Meryl.
Exactly. And yeah, I pitched the idea of calling it Diva Worship, but we'll work on the title.
We're workshopping. We'll
workshop it. But but a series where in between, like every couple of episodes, we would do a special spin-off where we just focus on the actor or actress. And
just wait till September. We have a whole month of something special cooked up for you. We won't tell you what it is yet, but we have a whole month dedicated to it. So we're
September
We
is
keep our
going.
mouths shut on that because you know me, I'm a little blabbermouth about certain stuff.
And also, we've got some special guests coming for some upcoming
Yeah.
that Christian and I are super, super excited and pumped about. So, listeners, once again, thank you so much for listening to that old gay classic cinema. Me and Christian are just so happy that people have found us, that people continue to love our work. I am so happy, of course, of Christian to be a part of this. Like I say, every single time we record, I'm just so grateful.
Don't get tired of it because you're going to have to keep saying it.
I will never get sick and tired of it. But of course, you can find that old gay classic cinema here wherever you get your podcasts on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to us for the visual companion that comes with the episodes. If you're listening, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe so that you get notifications every time a new episode goes live. And you can follow us on both Instagram and TikTok at that Old Gay Classic Cinema for clips of our episodes and also updates on when we're going to be posting. And of course, you can follow me and Christian individually at each of our respective handles. But until next time, listeners, take a trip back to Paris and put on your fabulous fringe outfit and go watch Victor Victoria. If you haven't watched it at all, or if you want to rewatch for it, I hope this podcast inspires you. But we love you all. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
See you then. Bye.
Bye.